Our final storyteller of the evening is the one veteran in this show. Yes, she is Lisa. Lisa works in Collective Impact and spends her free time dancing, reading, and writing murder mystery parties about javelina fight clubs. I have never been more intrigued about anything in recent memory. I have to know more about this. Find her after the show if you have a theory about the backstory of her first responder situation that you are about to hear. Please welcome to the stage, Lisa.
All right. Yes, it's not my first rodeo. They say it's like riding a bike, right? Okay. So, I've always liked to think that I'm decent in an emergency. After all, I'm often able to remove emotion from a situation, like a reptile, and I can examine an absurd number of hypothetical scenarios quickly, like a serial killer. Those qualities were especially helpful back when I lived at First and Grant, right across from the Fries. I would see wild shit all the time and stay cool as a cucumber. Once I was riding my bike home from Pueblo Vida, and I passed a car on my street, unattended, just on fire. Yeah, it looked like a lover's revenge situation. The word asshole was written in permanent marker on the passenger door. But I saw it, I called 911, told them to send the fire truck, and went on my way. I'm an emergency queen, mayor of Chilltown. But then in 2022, I encountered a situation that forced a reckoning with who I understood myself to be, and whether I should actually be anyone's yoga class emergency contact. I was on my morning walk, still near the Fries at First and Grant, and I stumbled across a gun. And I completely lost my mind. It stopped me in my tracks, just a casual gun, chilling next to our park walking path, nestled next to a native shrubbery planted by my neighborhood association, and confusingly, hauntingly, alongside an empty box of ice cream sandwiches. To be fair, my first impulse was to call 911. After all, I went to public school in the 90s, so I was heavily conditioned by McGruff the crime dog. If you're unfamiliar, this is a cartoon dog dressed as Spencer Tracy or a flasher. Depends on your point of reference. His one job was to get kids to trust the police. And it definitely worked on me. I am incepted. But I'm an adult now. I know to side-eye my white suburban impulses. So here, I took a breath. I tried to assess this gun situation beyond my monkey mind. So, second response, I thought, is this an actual emergency? What might I be missing here? Is there a non-dangerous reason why someone might leave a gun in a public park? And no, I couldn't really think of one. In fact, the only reason someone might leave a gun in a park would be if it wasn't a real gun at all, which would probably not be an emergency. So I crouched down to examine it more closely, but I kept my distance because in 90s Indiana, again, where I grew up, I had been raised to view guns like rattlesnakes, as though they might strike or spontaneously discharge at any moment. So, from a few feet back, this gun was entirely black, handgun shape, no tells that suggested any type of plaything, no orange cap, no Mattel imprint, no spout for filling it with water. But then again, I'd never held a gun. I don't even think I've ever seen a real gun at this point, so I needed a point of reference. I turned to Google. I pulled out my phone and typed in the very helpful phrase, "real gun look like." Overwhelming results. I narrowed my search. Real handgun look like. Real handgun, not fake gun. Real handgun, toy gun, fake gun, difference. In the end, my search provided nothing conclusive, but it will probably be brought up by the government if I'm ever suspected of a felony. But I really needed to know if this thing was real. So I pivoted to what my abolitionist friends had been trying to teach me for years, calling on my community. I took a photo of the gun, I sent it to a few group text chains. Unfortunately, post-2016, I'd cleared out a lot of people from my phone. Now it was just a lot of liberal pacifists, which is to say, all like me, all gun blind, not helpful. I had now been standing with this gun, not a gun, for about 15 minutes, and I had to admit, the most likely scenario was that this gun was just not real. Real guns are expensive and valuable. People don't just misplace them. This clearly wasn't an emergency. I needed to stop being a weirdo. I decided, I'm just gonna let it go. I'm gonna walk back to my house. But during that 3-minute walk, doubt swelled back up. What if it was a real gun? What if it was a real gun and I had done nothing? I couldn't give up. And at that point, I realized, okay, I do have another resource, my neighbors. Yeah, cliffhanger here. Now, over the past 4 years, I had only had one full back and forth engagement with the house of 5 middle-aged men living next door to me. And at least 3 times a week, I would say hello to them, but no one ever responded to me. It was very demoralizing. They only engaged back once, and that time it wasn't even someone who lived there. It was in the morning, 7 a.m. I was sitting on my porch, and someone else drove up to the house. This guy jumps out of the car, runs up to the door, bangs on it. Nobody answers. He runs over to me, and he goes, "Do you know where the fuck Kevin is?" I said, "No, I don't know Kevin. I actually don't know any of them. In fact, none of them ever talked to me." And he kind of ignored that admission of vulnerability. And he said, "Well, Kevin stole my truck. I need eyes on the backyard, so don't call the cops about what you're about to see." He then scaled my neighbor's fence, climbed onto their roof, screaming for Kevin to come out all the while. And you know what? I didn't call the cops, because I'm not a narc. Anyway, given that whole experience, it seemed like maybe those dudes would recognize a gun. Plus, all their cars had Blue Lives Matter license plates. But then, just as I'm gathering the courage to knock on their door, I get intercepted by my duplex neighbor, a much friendlier woman, and notably, I remembered in the moment, someone who also might know about guns. Because once, when our landlord was trying to sell the duplex, a realtor came by, and I heard her scream through her door, "Don't come in here, I have a gun!" It had alarmed me at the time, but now seemed kismet. So I explained the situation to her, and she confirmed that, yes, she definitely knew how to recognize guns. And so we set off to the park together. Now, this woman did not share my fear of the gun. She reached right out for it with her bare hands, and then, as her hands were hovering over it, like Reiki style, she paused. And then she grabbed an enormous stick and she hit it. Wild move. Luckily, it didn't discharge. What did happen was that she gasped, and she turned to me wide-eyed. She said, "It has heft." She handed me the stick, encouraged me to poke it too. I did, and indeed, heft. And then, upon closer examination, we noticed a previously unseen detail. The gun literally had the phrase, "not a toy," written on it. My God. I had actually discovered a real gun. So after all that, I concluded that this was an emergency. I did need to call the cops. So we walked back to my house. I still didn't want to call the cops. So as a compromise that I was quite proud of, I decided I would call Tucson's new non-emergency line. That's right, I would take action without diverting valuable resources from a fire or car accident. I would not be inviting a violent police presence into my neighborhood. Not all heroes wear capes. Unfortunately, when I called the line, the phone rang and rang and rang. And then a recording let me know the line wasn't staffed until 8 a.m. And I was instructed to call 911. God damn it. And so here we were. I had explored so many alternate responses, but I finally just called 911, as McGruff the crime dog had wanted me to do all along. And when the operator picked up and said, "What is your emergency?" I cut her off. This is not an emergency. I might have found a gun near my house. It might be a toy. It has heft. It might not be real. But this is not like a tier 1 call. I can wait. And to my shock, she says, actually finding a potential gun is always a tier 1 emergency. Where are you located? Okay, this was unexpected. So I said, oh, well, do you need my address or the address of where the gun is? And when she spoke again, I could hear her really trying and failing to keep the condescension out of her voice. She said, so you just left the potential firearm unattended in a public place where anyone can find it. And when she put it that way, I realized that, yes, I was a complete fucking idiot. Very appropriately shamed. I immediately started packing up my purse. I put my shoes on. I said, right, I'm walking back to the gun. I said, right, good. Well, there's already an officer stationed across the street at the Fry's. Unsurprising. So someone should be there in less than 5 minutes. And so I went to babysit the gun, hoping desperately that whoever owned the gun wouldn't come back for it in the next 5 minutes. I also did not love the idea of standing in a park next to a gun, enthusiastically waving to a police officer in the distance, even if they'd been told to expect me. And so I stood, hands clearly visible, eyes intensely vigilant. Nothing weird or suspicious about this at all. But the cop soon arrived, and she worked swiftly. She walked up, took one look at the gun, said, BB gun. BB gun? Are you fucking kidding me? I couldn't recognize a BB gun? This was humiliating. To her credit, she clocked my embarrassment, and she very generously tried to alleviate it. It's good that you called it in, really. It's really hard to tell the difference. Totally normal. I was still too embarrassed to respond, so she just kept going. She said, honestly, we need to get BB guns off the street, too. People mistake them for guns all the time. You flash one of these at somebody, they assume you're packing. My guys assume you're packing. That's never a good situation. Well, Jesus, this had suddenly taken a very weird turn. Now I felt like I needed to change the subject and get out of there. So I did the only thing I could think to do. I pointed at the ice cream sandwich box. But look, I said, did you see these? She did not laugh. Wow. Well, I know exactly what happened here, she said. Someone must have used this gun to rob the Circle K last night to get these ice cream sandwiches. She shook her head and sighed. Anyway, next time you find a gun, you can also just bring it down to the station. Take care of yourself now. And then she took my gun and she went on her way. And to this day, I'm unsure if the ice cream sandwich situation was a hypothetical or if I truly did help solve a crime that had happened at the Oracle Grant Circle K the night before. But what I do know for sure is this. I am not great in every emergency. And also, if you find a gun, just remember, you have options. You probably have up to 73 options that you can explore. at a very slow, possibly unsafe pace. And honestly, I think the only bad one is the one the cop gave me. Because I would never in a billion years pick up a mystery gun, throw it in my car, drive across town with it, and then walk into a police station holding it. Thank you.